Hello, everyone. It's Sibyl Star, and I am here to give the MoonDay morning astrology forecast for the week of February 20th to the 26th. I call it MoonDay morning because Monday is the day of the moon. And at the end of my forecast, I talk a little bit about the moon. But let's go on to the other astrological happenings for the week. All right, so to begin with, the sun is in Pisces. The sun has moved from Pisces to Aquarius. Well, where it will be for 29 and a half to 30 days. It is traveling from 1 to 6 degrees. And so what is Pisces energy? What is the Pisces archetype? Well, Pisces is a water sign. It's the last of the water sign, and it rules all of the waters of the world, or let's put it this way, is associated with all of the waters of the world. It's ruled by Neptune, who is the god of the sea, and especially the great cosmic sea, where we are all one. It's also called the great cosmic sea is called the collective unconscious. That's another place because it's a place where we all merge, where we are all one. Okay. And it definitely allows our hearts to merge with all that is and remember that we are part of the family of humanity, that we really are all one. And in truth, we've never left source. Okay. This is about unity consciousness as we merge our hearts together and share a common goal. And this is really how we change the world. Okay. Yeah, Pisces is the archetype of the mystic. It's a dreamy, imaginative kind of an energy. And dreaming is very, very strong with Pisces, whether we're talking about daydreams and creative visualization, or whether we're talking about dreams at night, where we often get guidance. It's a deeply sensitive and compassionate kind of an energy and can feel the suffering of the world. Okay. And it is the final stage of the spiritual journey of the zodiac, where we learn to forgive, accept, and love unconditionally. It is a time for retreat and going within so that we can listen and connect to that place of stillness within us where we can feel the flow of our own energy and receive inner guidance. This can be a time of creativity, dream work, being in nature, and being in silence. All of these things are important to do during this time because it's actually like nourishment for the soul. Okay. And it's a time to surrender to the great mystery, the illusion that we are all that we are in control of our lives is really an illusion. And Neptune and Pisces is very much about the illusory nature of life and the illusions and delusions in our lives, because it is a place where we can easily tell ourselves things that are just simply not true and believe them. It is very much associated with the land of fairy. Okay. It's also known as the victim savior energy. Being so sensitive, there can be a desire to rescue others who are suffering. But the truth is, if we do rescue, we often end up being the victim ourselves because people need to learn their own lessons. They have their own path, they have their own soul contracts. And so being, caring and empathetic, but not rescuing. It can also bring in escapism due to that sensitivity, ways that we numb our feelings through, addiction, through substance abuse, through, escapism through watching television or shopping, whatever we do to kind of numb when we don't want to feel something. And the key is to move through this, to move through our feelings. And our feelings, that sensitivity, to find a way to move through the world and retain our sensitivity. Okay. And like I said, too, there can also be some difficulties determining what is real and what is not real. Now, the Pisces new moon at 1 degree of Pisces, 1 degree, 22 minutes of Pisces, occurred on February 19th at 11:06 a.m. Pacific, but it landed on the 20th from actually a lot of the world. So it depends on where you live. And this new moon is also conjunct Saturn, which Saturn is a very different energy than Pisces. Like I said, Pisces is very dreamy, and really doesn't want to deal with reality as we know it here on Mother Earth. Whereas Saturn, it really rules 3D reality. And so Saturn brings in the ability to stay grounded, and what did I say? Oh, to stay grounded and also use some common sense. So it's a mix of idealism and realism, this new moon. But Saturn always shows us our work, and our work is our inner work. And Saturn and Saturn's going to be moving into Pisces for 2.5 years in this lunar cycle on March 7th. So I feel like Saturn conjunct this new moon is just simply a preview. It's the energy that's happening. And we'll just talk about it, Saturn and Pisces, because this is really what's happening. When Saturn changes signs, it really is very significant. And so Saturn in Pisces is very much about inner work, but it's also making our dreams real. Without Saturn, everything remains in the dream state. So it is remembering how to create, how to create in the quantum field is coming back into our consciousness again really strongly. Now, as I talked about Pisces being a water sign, and Saturn is about structure. And so I feel like the concept of structured water is, I've been talking about it before. I think it's very significant, and the structure of water. And structured water is actually just pure natural water that has not been, denatured through chemicals or other means. And it has its natural blueprint. It has its own crystalline shapes. And because, water in our bodies, when it is natural, functions a lot differently than water that has been denatured, I would say, because in our bodies, it turns into more like a viscous substance and acts a little bit differently. And of course, is the natural state that the water needs to be in our bodies. Okay. Now, Vera Austin is someone who does a lot of work with water. And I just recently saw that she did an experiment with water, and she exposed water to 5G. And the initial pictures show the shock and trauma, and the water just was it was very scary. But she said she continued taking photographs of the water, and that in a few days, with no more exposure to the 5G, it had fully restructured itself. And so this is what she said. She said, what's so encouraging is that the water has the ability to structurally recover and remember its original blueprint patterns. And I believe this is the way nature works, and it applies to all of us. And I think with this new moon, in a water sign conjunct Saturn, and Saturn is the planet of manifestation and making our dreams real, is that we can remember the original blueprint of how to manifest in this world and create the world we want. Okay. Now, this new moon is in an aspect called the eye, the new moon and Saturn. And what that means, it is at a midpoint between Venus and Pluto, which are in a sextile, which is 60 degrees. So this new moon is like 30 degrees from Venus, and then once again 30 degrees from Pluto. So it's right in the middle. And this is an aspect that brings clarity. Anyway, and I feel like it's very relationship oriented, that is giving us some clarity on what is true and authentic in our relationships, and also allows for healing of trauma around betrayal and loss. Anyway, listen to my Pisces new moon video if you want to learn more about it. All right. So also, okay, on February 22nd, the sun is conjunct the fixed star Fomalhaut. I'm not real sure how to say it. Anyway, it's a royal star of Persia. And the Persians believe there were 4 royal stars that held up the heavens, and they were very significant stars. And this star is at 4 degrees of Pisces. and it's connected to Archangel Gabriel, who is a divine messenger. So there might be some divine messages coming through. This star has mystical and magical qualities and connects us to the Christ consciousness. Okay, which one could say is unity consciousness. All right. Now, Venus changes signs. Venus has been traveling in Pisces, where she's exalted. Venus is, of course, goddess of love, and she relates to our relationships with others, as well as self-love and self-esteem and all the things we value in life. Anyway, Venus in Aries is spontaneous, bold, and impatient in matters of the heart. It's a strong desire nature. Venus in Aries can be blunt, and Venus is in Aries, we'll say what we mean and mean what we say. It's very direct. And likes a challenge. And I have noticed, Aries will create a challenge if there's not one present, because that's what they're wired to do. And the thing is with Aries, Venus in Aries, romance needs to remain fresh or it will get bored. It's a very exciting energy and prefers to chase rather than be chased. All right. Now, Mercury, a god of the mind, is in Aquarius and is square Uranus and trine Mars. And of course, Uranus is the ruler of Aquarius, and Mercury represents the human mind and Uranus the divine mind. And Mars is always about, one of the meanings is our way forward, our direction in life. Now, I feel like, and this is an aspect that lasts all week, but is exact on Wednesday. What day is that? I can't remember, February 23rd, I think. Anyway, but it's also a very disruptive energy. It's kind of like you think you're going one way only to find out things have changed. And so it's about being flexible and following the flow and move around obstacles. Okay. Once again, it's kind of like navigating the rapids, and you have to be really in the present moment and paying attention, because things may show up that way. Okay. It could also bring volatile weather and earth changes. But what, Uranus, is about lightning, lightning striking. And now that I think of it, Mercury is the divine mind. Mercury is the human mind, Uranus is the divine mind, and Mars is in Gemini, which is also to do with communication. So it's really important how we communicate this week. We might have things just coming in very quickly, and it may be important to really get them down and to also be aware of how we're communicating, right? How we're communicating these ideas. Okay. It's very much a very visionary aspect, and it is showing us not just what is, but what can be. It's a visionary aspect of the way forward is what may be showing up. And I listened to Magenta Pixie last night. She's a channeler, and the group she channels says that water is the future. That water in its pure form is a great conductor of energy, especially salt water, and it will be used in the future for many things. And I think, with Saturn moving into Pisces and Neptune transiting in Pisces, it'll be in the last degrees, water is going to be really significant in the coming years. And it may be that we're starting to learn different technologies of how to work with the water, and especially salt water. Okay. She also talked about free energy technology is actually already here and will start to become available. Well, let's put it this way, if our governments don't shut it down, but that it is here. There's new things coming into the field, and there are those that are catching these ideas, different inventors and scientists and different people. It's in the field. And there's one more thing I wanted to talk about that she said I thought was so interesting. She said, and the truth is, many people are seeing a bifurcation in the path of humanity. That there are some that are going on into a higher frequency dimension, and some of those who still need to be in a 3D reality. But she said in a few years, and the year she actually spoke about was 2026. And that is the year of the Saturn-Neptune conjunction at 0 degrees Aries, which is Aries point, and Saturn and Neptune together is always about one of the meanings is making our dreams real. And I feel like this is when the collective shift is happening, that we are working on our own inner work. Saturn in Pisces is so much about doing our own inner work, preparing us for the collective shift. But she said that for the next 3 years, there's going to be the bifurcation and more polarization until 2026, when the collective shift happens. And that's when there's what's called a trifurcation, whereas the two polarities come together to create a third. And that is when all of humanity ascends. Anyway, it was quite interesting, and ascends into the higher frequency dimensions of Mother Earth, where she already is. Okay. And I also feel like it's very much about an embodied spirituality. We are getting energetic upgrades. It increases in photonic light, and especially with this Mercury-Uranus square. And to realize that when this ascension process comes, we're not leaving our bodies, is that our bodies are going into a fourth density, okay, which is more of a light body, but it's still a body, okay. And people are having dreams of seeing their own light bodies and becoming more prominent. All right. Now, and then just one more thing before we go on to the moon is Pluto is transiting at 29 degrees of Capricorn. And, and as I have talked about, as the frequency goes higher, it also triggers the opposite reaction. The deeper, darker, subterranean energies start really coming to the surface. And I feel like this is this 29 degrees of Capricorn, and it's the, 29 degrees, excuse me, Pluto at 29 degrees of Capricorn. It's called an anaretic degree. And any anaretic degree, it's about a last chance to get it right. And it's the potential to become a master of the energy. And if the work has not been done, it forces it, pushes it to the absolute limit, and a crisis may ensue. And this 29 degrees of Capricorn, well, it will be there until March 23rd, when Pluto goes into Aquarius for 3 months, but then it goes retrograde. It comes back over that 29 degrees. 29 degrees is very prevalent for the next 3 years of 29 degrees of Capricorn, and Pluto transiting there. All right. And so, as Pluto, is about death, rebirth, and regeneration. It's like clearing out all the dead weight, all that is no longer healthy, what has become corrupted. And of course, Capricorn rules the institutions of our of our culture, and it's like the bones of our civilization. And so, and the Pluto return is happening in the chart of the US. So there is a death and rebirth happening here in the United States. It's like a snake shedding its skin of what is no longer healthy. Okay. And we're seeing that, of course, all over. Exposure of corruption in the external world is just happening everywhere. And our job is to be able to identify it, because we need to make choices that are in alignment with our highest good. And we can only do that when we are aligned with the truth. And once we know what is true and what is not true. And of course, that's hard to determine as well. Anyway, but Pluto in Capricorn, the master teaching is around maturity, honesty, accountability, and maturity, honesty, responsibility, and accountability on a personal and a collective basis. And, Pluto pushes us to evolve by seeing through illusion and making different choices. It's, it's important to remember we cannot always control what happens, but we can always control how we respond. And that is a big piece of self-empowerment. All right. Now, what is the moon doing? All right. So the moon is on Monday and Tuesday, the moon is in Pisces. And of course, we've already talked a lot about Pisces. It's a very mystical kind of an energy. It's about dreams and illusions, forgiveness, understanding of human frailties, and the key, of course, is, to not let yourself, rescue someone, to just be there with them while they are going through their stuff, and knowing that, there is a great sensitivity there, and to not take it on as your own. Moon in Pisces can take on other people's stuff and think it is their own. So it's really important to recognize that. Okay. It's a very psychic and spiritually sensitive time. Now, the moon is conjunct Neptune on Tuesday, so everything I said is magnified. Like I said, no rescuing. Have a way to determine what is yours and what is not yours. And it may be difficult to stay focused because the mind wants to daydream. Your dreams may be very, very powerful. Okay. All right, now on Wednesday and Thursday, the moon moves into Aries, and Aries, the moon in Aries is very much about emotional directness and impulsiveness. Often, the moon is the unconscious, and so some unconscious material around anger or boundaries may come up as well. It may need to be able to, in some way, identify where you stop and others begin, and more like what is okay and what is not okay. This is yes and this is no, and being really firm about it. Okay. And it's square Pluto on Thursday, so some old unresolved conflict may surface that wants to be dealt with in a direct and honest manner. All right. On Friday and Saturday, the moon is in Taurus. The moon in Taurus is very much about peace and comfort on the emotional level. Music and animals may play a very big and important role for you those days. And to stay grounded, to go outside in Mother Nature and sit on her and let her just kind of hold you. Now, on Saturday, the moon in Taurus is conjunct Uranus, which may bring some unexpected changes that will push you out of your comfort zone and make you have a change in plans that you maybe didn't want to have. And yet it is something to remember, that is something that is serving you. And maybe you were getting too stuck in one place. All right. On Sunday, the moon is in Gemini, and Gemini likes to be on the go, keeping a finger to the winds of change, learning and communicating. You might find yourself having some very interesting conversations with the moon in Gemini. All right. Wishing you all a wonderful week. If you like this video, please check like and check subscribe. And if you would like a reading with me, all of my information is in the description box. All right. Blessings to all of you this week, and namaste.